What I think is amazing about Sarah's coming keynote is that this, I think she shows this what can happen when you have a crisis, whether it's a huge bombing somewhere, or whether it's a pandemic that we will all be having, with the corona. I mean, we've been all locked in. We don't have that so many human contacts that we would want to have, but it's also an opportunity, and like she can also very well demonstrate. She sold her company during COVID, so that it can also be a chance. And she changed her life. She moved to South Africa and started doing that what she really loves. And I'm sure she will tell more about herself, about what she's going to talk about. So I'm sorry, Sarah, that you had to start with such a very loaded emotional thing, but yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to hear what you have to say. So please, Sarah. uh,
So,
Unmute.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Maria and Ram, for that lovely introduction. Ram, you definitely got me going. And yeah, I've had the pleasure of knowing Ram and Maria for many years now through my mother. And it's an absolute honor to be here today. And thank you, Ram and Maria, for inviting me. Um, I'd like to start with a very big congratulations to the women of Wave9. It is a major accomplishment to have made it this far already on your entrepreneurial journeys, and you are all much further than I was at this stage by having gone through Accelerator Frankfurt. You should be very proud of yourselves. And as an angel investor myself, I am truly excited to hear each of your pitches. As Maria shared, last year I sold my e-commerce business during Corona. I launched the business in 2015, and I told myself that I would exit in 5 years. Now that I'm on the other side of an exit, I get a lot of people asking me, how did I do it? They ask me questions like, how did you achieve product market fit? How did you gain customer traction? How did you scale so quickly? And they ask me these questions because they want a formula that can be followed, a path to success that can be replicated. Don't get me wrong, the answers to these questions matter. But if I'm really honest with you, these aren't my real answers to my success. Of course, market conditions and business decisions need to align, but more times than not, as an entrepreneur, all of the data analysis and expert opinions in the world aren't going to answer the vast majority of decisions you're going to be faced with. What's even more important than developing your ability to influence the external world is developing your relationship with your internal world. So, what do I mean by that? First of all, you must fine tune your intuitive capabilities. There is something inside of you that called you to build this business, a voice. It's not only important to listen to that voice, but also to actively nurture your relationship to that voice. This is a muscle that can be strengthened. Now, some people like to say your intuition is always right. You just have to follow it. This is a load of BS, if you ask me. Sometimes your intuition is horrendously, fatally wrong. However, as an entrepreneur, as someone who is daring to do something differently than anyone has before, your success is dependent on you maximizing what makes you you. Sometimes following that voice might lead to mistakes, but it's not about avoiding mistakes. It's about getting better and better at intuiting what the right path is for you. So do your homework, of course, make calculated decisions, but also embrace naivete. When I sold my business last year, buyers asked me, how were you able to negotiate your supplier terms? We've never seen terms like these before. The truth is, the only reason I was able to get these unheard of terms is because I didn't know any better. I had no experience in the manufacturing world to know that the terms I negotiated were so unusual. I just asked for what made sense to me. Had I known what the industry standards were, there's a good chance I wouldn't have gotten these terms. And those terms ended up being one of the major assets of my business when I sold. So what do you do when Scheisse really hits the fan? I would love to tell you that this isn't going to happen, but I would be lying to you. It's easy for me now in hindsight to look back and to say, oh yeah, this was my path to success. First I did this, then I did this, that led to this, and voila. The entrepreneurial path is anything but linear. There were many moments where I pulled my hair out, shed tears, and felt like screaming. I remember just a few months into launching my business, my sole employee accidentally gave away $30,000 worth of inventory in a single day. At the time, this was enough to put me out of business. I had cashed out on my retirement plan to launch my business. I convinced my supplier to give me the inventory and that I would pay him back later, and I barely had any sales coming in. My sole employee was also my best friend, and I had begged and convinced her to leave her cushy, safe corporate job to go into business with me. So in that moment, my heart completely stopped. All of my fears of failure, of disappointing everyone around me exploded in my face. In these moments, you have to allow yourself to lament. We are taught that emotions don't have any place in business, but that's a lie. The entrepreneurial life is an emotional life, and you have to allow yourself to release. I spent a good half an hour crying on the curb in front of my apartment. It was not pretty. But then you pick yourself back up and you try one thing, anything. And then the next thing after that. And the next thing after that. In hindsight, I look back on this memory with a lot of fondness, and my best friend and I laugh about it all the time. And we can see how that perceived setback actually helped us in the long run. Which leads me to my next point. Develop a new relationship to fear. Fear is part of the process. We all have it, but the key is to work with it, not against it. One way that I do this is to see fear as a good thing. We've all heard how important it is to have clear KPIs for our business. And you may have also heard about defining the one metric of success for your business. What I invite you to do is to also have a one metric of success for yourself. For me, that metric is personal growth. And when you measure your success by your level of personal growth, then fear becomes opportunity. Because the greater the level of fear, the more opportunity there is for growth. And fear wouldn't be there if you weren't doing something challenging. So acknowledge yourself for stepping up to the plate and say yes when fear arises. Lastly, do not be afraid of adversity. Adversity creates grit. It creates resilience. It creates the ability to see things differently. It also creates opportunity. When I first launched my business, there were less than 10% of founders in my industry that were female. I remember going to an event that was for high-performing founders and being asked which of the founders was my boyfriend. Annoying, yes, but ultimately, the fact that female founders were so underrepresented was actually a major advantage to me. Because over half of all consumer decisions are made by women, And simply by creating a brand for women by women, I had a leg up in the game. You are all here to innovate and disrupt industries. And what makes you different is one of your greatest assets. Being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. If you really want to push all of your buttons and face your deepest insecurities, then become an entrepreneur. But in the same vein, if you really want to get to know yourself, see what you're made of, and maximize your impact on the world, then become an entrepreneur. It takes a lot of courage to embark on this journey, and for that, I acknowledge you, the women of Wave9. I also want to express my genuine excitement for you, because this is sure to be an adventure of growth, expansion, and joy. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Sarah. I really enjoyed that. And I think it linked very good in that what Ram was talking about, his gut feeling. So yes, you can use it as a tool, but not let it be fooled by it, so to say. So using some kind of, like you said, having your own KPIs. Since we don't have a lot of time, but I would like to ask one question of personal interest. You said that you had a KPI for your personal growth. So how do you measure it?
That's a good question. It's one of those qualitative metrics. It's difficult to measure tangibly, but I think it's a process of introspection and asking myself how comfortable I am facing something that used to scare me before. And if there's change there, then there's growth.
Cool. Thank you, Sarah. So I guess in a way, it's like using self-reflection and this kind of looking back things as a tool for your and evaluating yourself. And you are your worst judge normally. So in that way, I totally understand what you're saying.